I don't know about you guys, but I personally have been waiting for the premiere of The Last Dance for about 2 years now. And originally it was supposed to release in the early part of 2019. It was supposed to be released in the summer of 2020 this year. And due to the current pandemic, we get it now. And I watched the first 2 parts over and over and over again, mainly because there are no other sports to watch right now. And I don't really have anything else to do other than prepare for the NFL draft on my football channel microphone. So I wanted to make sure that I could make a video so I could point out to you the biggest takeaways from the first 2 episodes to set the stage for the rest of the documentary for you guys. Now, really quickly, guys, before we get to all of that, if you're new to my channel and you enjoy basketball content, make sure you take a moment to leave a like, subscribe, and turn my notifications on. I also live stream on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 9 p.m. Pacific time. You can find a link to that in the description down below, alongside with my other social media pages like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, and everything else. Before we get to our first takeaway, this video is also a sponsored video. Guys, I know I'm not the only one losing my mind due to this COVID-19 stuff, and the one thing that has completely shaken my life up the most is the fact that all gyms are closed. So now I have to come up with brand new workouts, and I have to do them at home. But even more so, I need to figure out a way to listen to my music without disrupting the rest of my household. And typically I'd have a lot of difficulty doing that because most earbuds would slip out of my ear, or I would be able to hear everyone else's racket as I'm working out and would completely disrupt my workout. But that's why I love the Raycon Everyday E25 earbuds, because they're these 2 beautifully designed earbuds that, first of all, slips right into your ear, and then second of all, you don't hear a single thing once they're in your ear. They're completely noise isolating. I love using them for when I work out, and I really enjoy using them for when I'm editing videos. And furthermore, they're so inexpensive. They're a much higher quality earbud than any other earbud on the market, and the sound quality is significantly better. They also gave me a 15% off code for you guys to use, so either click my link in the description down below or go to buyraycon.com/FlightMike for 15% off. And thank you to Raycon for the sponsor. Now let's get to our first takeaway. I don't know about you guys, but growing up, I would hear a lot of motivational speeches and see a lot of motivational quotes regarding Michael Jordan's attempt to join Laney High School's basketball team. And the very first takeaway that I felt was very, very interesting, and you could choose to see this in either way or either light. I hope my words aren't taken out of context as well. So for those of you guys that don't know how the story goes, and this is how it went for years, a young Michael Jordan that was in high school attempted to join his varsity basketball team as a sophomore, and for the most part he wasn't able to make it. The coaches told him that Michael Jordan isn't good enough and he wouldn't be good enough to play basketball ever, and then Michael Jordan went, worked his butt off, and then eventually became Michael Jordan. But there's a huge detail that we completely weren't aware of up until this documentary. And it's a detail that completely takes this entire story and kind of changes it a little bit. Because when Michael Jordan tried out for his high school basketball team as a sophomore, he was 5'11". A 5'11" point guard, Michael Jordan, came out and tried out for his varsity high school basketball team. And for the most part, his coaches were telling him, you could not make it because you're too short. And then Michael Jordan, he was very frustrated by these words. He still worked his butt off over the summer. But after working his butt off for the summer, and due to a 4-inch growth spurt, he was able to make it to his basketball team as a junior. Now, I'm not saying Michael Jordan didn't work hard and he didn't deserve to make the varsity basketball team, but that's a huge detail that is often omitted. I thought that was very interesting, a very interesting note to start us off, and that's something I hear a lot in my life, and I'm sure you guys do too. The next biggest takeaway is something that would honestly perplex me, and that's the fact that the Chicago Bulls wanted to rebuild while they were in the midst of a dynasty.
After the 5th championship, which was 96-97, we were looking at this team and we realized, other than Michael, the rest of the guys were probably at the end of their high productive years. We had to decide whether we keep the team together or not. And we realized maybe this was the time to do a rebuild and not try to win a 6th championship.
the strange thing is, he didn't even want to give Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen the opportunity to fail. He didn't want them to potentially lose in the NBA Finals. He just wanted to hit the reset button as they were winning championships. After championship number 5, Jerry Krause wanted to rebuild. And could you believe that? Because that's not really common in today's NBA. If you have a championship core, you typically put that product on the floor over and over and over again until they lose. Because the more championships you win, the better it is for your brand, and the more profitable that brand could become in the long term. So when Scottie Pippen was at the age of 31 and Michael Jordan was at the age of 35, they wanted to rebuild. And while all of this drama was going on, the Chicago Bulls were still winning. But despite their success, Jerry Krause told Phil Jackson that this would be his final year, even if he went 82-0. Now, I know what we're all thinking. Wow, how could Jerry Krause be such a horrible general manager? This, honestly, like any general manager would know not to make this move, but you have to bear in mind that Jerry Krause had some moments of brilliance in the early part of his career as a general manager. And these are moves that we wouldn't even see happen later on in the NBA, or that we would see general managers botch in the NBA. For example, 3 years after Michael Jordan has been selected in the NBA draft, Jerry Krause was able to trade for both Horace Grant and Scottie Pippen on draft day, which were the perfect teammates for Michael Jordan. Players like LeBron James would never even experience such a thing during his first stint in Cleveland. So you have to tip your hat off to Jerry Krause. He was clearly very, very good at his job. And one of the biggest holes of this documentary that you have to bear in mind as you're watching the documentary is Jerry Krause died in 2017. So I really doubt that the explanation that Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson, and Jerry Reinsdorf are giving behind Jerry Krause's actions are the full story. I'm sure if he was alive and he was here, he would tell us why he wanted to scrap down the Chicago Bulls back then. And I'm not trying to play devil's advocate to Jerry Krause, because for the most part, as shrewd of a businessman as he was screwing over his players. Scottie Pippen did sign a very favorable contract, and we're going to get to that in just a second, by literally selling his prime for 7 years and getting paid $18 million over those 7 years. And Jerry Krause, despite making a great move and keeping Scottie Pippen for a discount, opted to blow the Chicago Bulls up, as opposed to trying to reinvest in Scottie Pippen and even trying to get Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson, and Scottie Pippen to stay with the Chicago Bulls past the 99 season, past the 2000 season, as late as they freaking can, until they've proven that they are no longer dominant anymore. And that's what Michael Jordan wanted from Jerry Krause, but I suppose since they didn't see eye to eye on how to build a team, that led to a lot of tension. For example, in Michael Jordan's sophomore year, he did go down with a foot injury. He broke a bone in his foot. And as a result, he sat down 60 plus games. And when he was ready to come back, he told management, hey, I'm ready to come back. I want to play again. But it appeared as if Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf had a different plan in mind. They wanted to tank for a good pick in the draft, supposedly, in order to help get Michael Jordan a good supporting cast so they could consistently compete for championships. But Michael Jordan wanted to compete in that very moment, and he ended up coming back, willing the Chicago Bulls to the 8th seed in the NBA playoffs, and they would lose to the Boston Celtics in the first round, but not before Michael Jordan could drop 49 and 63 points on 2 separate occasions on one of the greatest dynasties of the 80s in the Boston Celtics. And I guess you could say that on one hand, the Chicago Bulls lost on an opportunity to get even greater draft capital to build around Michael Jordan, but on the other hand, this was sort of Michael Jordan's coming out party. You have to understand, dropping 49 and 63 points in the playoffs in a first round matchup against Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics, that's a phenomenal way to tell the entire NBA that you have arrived. But that still doesn't matter, because Jerry Krause clearly wanted to have the Chicago Bulls tank. And as time went forward more and more and more, and as they got into more and more disagreements, Michael Jordan would start completely disrespecting Jerry Krause in front of all of the rest of his teammates. And I'm sure this footage is from the 97 to 98 season, and probably that's why Michael Jordan was so nasty to Jerry at this point, because of course, when you bring a team at this point, 5 championships, and they want to just get rid of you after the season, and they make it clear that they want to get rid of you, and no matter what you do, even if you go 82-0, he wants your head coach gone, he wants you gone, and he wants Scottie Pippen gone. That just rubs an athlete that is super competitive like Michael Jordan the wrong way. So as a result, the entire theme of The Last Dance is set, where we pretty much see Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson in one corner, and then Jerry Krause on the other corner. It still is shocking that we see a scenario that winning championships consistently isn't rewarded. But there's also another thing that you have to bear in mind as you're watching this. This wasn't fully a decision based off of Jerry Krause. Phil Jackson also had this theory that after 7 years you should be done coaching. After 7 years you need to move on, because after 7 years of staying in one place, your players are probably not going to respect your voice anymore. Could Jerry Krause have potentially convinced Phil Jackson to stay? I'm sure if he felt a little bit more wanted, he may have been able to bend his rules a little bit, but that's something that we can't know for sure. The next thing that we have to talk about is what the Chicago Bulls were known as before Michael Jordan got there. And this is probably the most interesting tidbit of The Last Dance's first 2 episodes, and that's the fact that they were known as the Traveling Cocaine Circus. And Michael Jordan gives you an idea of what the NBA was like before the 80s, in the 80s, and what the NBA was like before he was there to completely change the game and put them on the mainstream. He goes on to detail that he had one event in the preseason, and he's trying to find his teammates in a hotel. He goes there and he knocks on the door, and he could hear one of his teammates saying, "Shh, I hear someone there. Who is it?" Michael Jordan says, "Yo, it's me, Michael Jordan." And you could hear the teammates saying, "Oh man, he's just a rookie. What do we do?" They let Michael Jordan in. He sees people smoking weed in one corner, people doing like cocaine in another corner, and women in one corner. And he pretty much said, "Okay, I'm out of here, because if this place gets raided, then I'm going down with them." And that's pretty much how we get the idea of how the NBA was back in the 80s. You know, they did have a huge cocaine problem back in the 80s, and it's nice to see that Michael Jordan was able to pull away from that. The final takeaway that I want to discuss is Scottie Pippen's awful business decision. So when Scottie Pippen was 24 years old in the 1991 season, he decided to sign a 7-year, $18 million contract. And this contract was so horrendous that Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the Chicago Bulls, went up to Pippen and said, "Yo, this is a bad contract. I don't think you should sign this." But Scottie Pippen said, "No, I need the security. I need to pay for my impoverished family and take care of them," and he signed it. And this resulted in a very disgruntled Pippen in the 1998 season, because literally after he signed that contract, he won 3 championships in a row. Then they tried to see if Pippen was a good focal point of the Chicago Bulls during the time that Michael Jordan left. Once the Chicago Bulls identified that Pippen was the greatest number 2 possible, and he was a average number 1, Michael Jordan would come back and they would win 2 more championships before the situation we're in now. It's important to note that although Scottie Pippen wasn't paid as well as he played, literally 7 years and $18 million is nothing for a player of Pippen's caliber, he did in fact end up making more money than Michael Jordan's playing career. I mean, in terms of revenue generated as an NBA star, Scottie Pippen would make a ton of money after his Chicago Bulls career. He finished his career with $109 million in earnings, which is even more than Michael Jordan's career earnings of $93 million. The Rockets would sign him during the 99 season to a 5-year, $67 million contract, and then he would return to the Bulls in 2003, and he would get paid even more during that brief, I think it was like, he played something like 10 to 20 games during that year, and he got paid something like $10 million. Scottie Pippen would return to the Chicago Bulls on a 2-year, $10 million contract in 2003, but he would only play 23 games for the Bulls, and he would sustain a ton of injuries, and then he would end up retiring. So don't feel bad for Scottie as you're watching this, because the story, there's a happy ending to his story. Now, is there anything else that you guys noticed while you were watching The Last Dance that you think may have slipped from me? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm your boy, TheFlightMike, and I'll catch you guys in our next upload.